welcome to Thursday night. We appreciate you taking the time to join us tonight and are looking forward to a conversation about one of our favorite brands at the store. My name's David. I'm the watch buyer at the store. I hope all of you know me. If you don't, we should get to know each other. Also alongside me tonight is Nick, our CEO. Say hi, Nick.
Hey, everyone. Thanks so much for coming. Very excited to talk with you about IWC. It's definitely one of my personally favorite brands too. So happy to be here tonight.
And along for the ride tonight are two of the IWC representatives. We have Mike, who represents our account and takes very good care of us and has all the answers to everything IWC. And if he doesn't have it, then Brian has him backed up, because Brian's their corporate trainer and he's along to make sure that I don't relay any bad information. But
well, you guys are a pleasure to work with, so yeah. Make it easy.
They're going to keep an eye on us too. They don't want us revealing too many of the IWC secrets.
Also that.
Right.
Yeah, they already made me delete a few slides. We'll talk about those later, but for now, we'll stick to what we have.
That'll be the call after the call.
There you go. So without further ado, let's talk about IWC. So the year was 1868. A watchmaker from E. Howard Watch Company out in the East Coast decided that he could do it better. Decided that with Swiss workmanship and craftsmanship, that he could manufacture pocket watches for the masses and have it so that he could sell them back to people in the United States for a better price. He had all the answers. He went to Geneva. They didn't want him. The people in Geneva kind of shooed him away and said, why would we want an American coming here and polluting our watchmaking industry? So he ended up a little bit north, right along the Rhine River, and as they say, got a good deal on a piece of land in Schaffhausen, as long as he would use their hydropower as part of the way to fuel the plant, per se. So he set up shop in Schaffhausen and decided that that was where he was going to manufacture his pieces. The town is beautiful. It's picturesque. It's everything you would think of as a European town, from the churches with the clocks on the steeples to, Brian, I might ask you to help me on this one. This is one of the oldest clocks in the town, and if you notice, there are way more hands than people would need for an actual clock. There's sidereal time, there's phases of the moon, the actual time. This clock, I believe, dates back to the 1500s, and is right in the town square. So if you stand in the middle of the town, this is the clock you see. I believe it was facing east. We had the pleasure of seeing it there a few years ago when we went. The whole town is supportive of IWC. You know, clocks on the walls, all the shops, you know, you'll see more IWCs worn in Europe than you usually do here in the United States. Definitely everyone there appreciates the brand and the employment that it brings, but the culture that it brings as well. And their history is vast. At the manufacturer, I suppose it's the old manufacturer now. They've set up a new manufacturer, but the old manufacturer, the museum, having pieces, you know, every important piece that they had, from the old pocket watches to the first of the different series of watches that they made, really gave a great experience with all the history and knowledge that they spread when you go into the tour there. Little bit more of the town. This is Guderhof, a wonderful restaurant. This was actually a main unloading and loading place that as people brought stuff from Germany into Switzerland on the Rhine River, this was like the unloading place where they took things off of the boats and brought it in, and then they converted it to a restaurant here, right just on the river. You can see off to the right there. This is a picture of the manufacturer. This is when we were there 2 years ago, I think it was. This was still where the museum was located and the boutique was located. The new facility hadn't been completed yet, so we didn't make it out to there. We have a picture of that coming, but this was the original building as well. It's just been modernized a little bit to fit with the technology. It's a company, like I said, that dates back to 1868. I just thought I'd touch on a few of the models that we know and love. This was a very special timepiece back in 1936, kind of their first pilot watch per se, with the large Arabic numerals. The pointer that you see between 10 and 11 was actually a time-lapse pointer, kind of one of the first of its kind to set to the minute hand and see how much time has passed. It is a dual directional rotating bezel, so kind of a fun, unique piece that they replicated kind of in the early 2000s when they redid the vintage collection, but 1936 is when this dates back to. In 1939, two Portuguese businessmen decided that they wanted a ship's chronometer essentially on their wrist. They wanted a watch that they could see while they were sailing, that had similar accuracy, so that they didn't always have to look at the ship's chronometer when they were sailing out on the open seas. They wanted something large and readable, and they took a pocket watch movement and built a case around it, and this is what they introduced back in 1939.
David, on this slide, just to point out, I really love how the original Portugueser has stayed so true to current models, and what you'll see later on today in the presentation is a fresh look back at this particular design, which really established a whole new line of watches for IWC, a very prominent part of their collection. And I mean, this is just a brilliant design, and it's very, very timeless, as you'll see later.
Just to kind of add to that, in regards to the design of the Portugueser, this piece, when it was designed, was a 43 millimeter, which at that time, if you think about the 1930s, was a very large wristwatch. Back then, the standard size was about 30 to 32 millimeters. So if you look at the Portugueser collection historically, it has pretty much remained 43 millimeters and larger, with the exception of maybe the chronograph, which we introduced later on down the line. But for the most part, the line itself and most of the pieces itself from the Portugueser line have remained, true to form or true to historical form in its 43 and above case size.
In 1940, in response to everything going on in the world at that time, they stepped up their game and were one of 5 companies that manufactured a true larger pilot watch. So you'll see here the B-er pilot watch, kind of reminiscent of what they still do in the big pilot, with large onion crown and the very legible dial that can be read at much distance. 1967 is when the Aqua Timer came through. Very familiar 2 crowns on the side, one to rotate the bezel, the other to set the date and time on the watch. And 1976, the Ingenieur, one of the designs by Gerald Genta, kind of in one of the first ones, I think, that kind of has the staying power of the Genta designs, because the other ones were a little bit later, and I think they were one of the first ones to utilize his skills in order to design an iconic piece. And in 1985, the Da Vinci. Usually they're complicated piece back then, where you would see the perpetual calendar with the 4-digit year, the moon phase. So a lot of different functionality within the Da Vinci at that time. It's evolved, and we have time-only watches and strictly moon phase watches and things like that as well currently. But still kind of in their collection, the dressier piece that, you know, lends itself to that classic look.
And David, I think this was the first ever automatic perpetual calendar wristwatch.
It's the year that we introduced, the Kurt Klaus, rather, the famous watchmaker, introduced the perpetual calendar, all synced with a single crown, which is really an amazing technological feat that is still used to this day, and one of the reasons that the perpetual calendar is very much synonymous with IWC.
And because I couldn't resist, I had to put a future dream of mine once we are back to normalcy in our world, and being able to go and see the new manufacturer, everything into a state-of-the-art, technologically advanced manufacturer where everything is done for IWC. It's not that far away from the original, from what I understand. So I'll still be able to go to the good restaurants and enjoy the food that's there. But it is definitely a wish to get back, because it is a wonderful trip. And being modern as we are, we're going to launch into 2020.
There we go.
And we are going to discuss the new releases of IWC and the Portugueser collection from 2020 that was launched this last weekend.
All right, so I'll take it over and discuss the new collection with everybody and kind of walk you through some of the pieces. Some you may recognize, some will be new designs, but we'll go through and we'll talk about them in a little greater detail. So here we have the Portugueser Chronograph. So this is the newer model chronograph that was released earlier this year. And the difference between this model chronograph and previous models is that this new model is now encased in, or it now has an in-house movement. So we've created a new chronograph movement, the caliber 69, which has a 46-hour power reserve. And we've placed it into our iconic Portugueser chronograph and given it a sapphire case back so that you can see that beautiful movement in the back. Now, one of the other updates to this particular model is the butterfly clasp, as opposed to the pin buckle. So now the chronograph will now have a nice double butterfly clasp. And it comes in the same traditional colors. So the colors themselves have not changed. We did introduce 2 new colors this year, that being the racing green that you see on the right-hand side, as well as the burgundy.
David, if you could just go back one slide. I just want to point out that, you know, with introducing the new model, that you know, the chronograph is so iconic to IWC that we really didn't want to alter with the design. So really, aesthetically, between the new version and the previous, I mean, side by side, they're virtually identical. We tweaked the logo a bit, really retaining the iconic design and everything that you know, we know and love about this model.
Yeah, and to Mike's point, not only did the aesthetics of the model not change, but the watch overall was improved with the enhancement of the exhibition caseback and the in-house movement, which is an enormous improvement, something people had asked about for a long time. And that being said, the retail price on this model changed by only $350. In-house movement plus $350. Unbelievable. We were all really shocked in a good way when we found that out.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
All right. All right. So the next model, and you just saw this design previously in David's presentation with the introducing the Portugueser family. So it harkens back to the reference 325, which was the reference number for the piece that you saw earlier. This is our Portugueser automatic 40. So this is a 40 millimeter automatic. It has a caliber 82, so it's going to have a 60-hour power reserve. Very beautiful design, also open case back as well. One thing to note about the Portugueser collection as it stands now is that the entire Portugueser collection is made up of in-house movements. Yeah. So every Portugueser that you get as of today will have an in-house movement. And part of that goes back to the new manufacturer, right? And being able to ramp up manufacturing and being able to kind of ramp up our innovation as well. So this is our first collection or our first family that is 100% in-house. You can see the color designs there. So similar to the Chronograph, similar colors. We also have the 18 karat 5N gold piece at the end as well.
What I like about this one is really the size offering, because up until this point, the automatic version found in the Portugueser collection, the smallest you could get was a 42 millimeter. And if this size was too large for you, 40 millimeter is just absolutely perfect. It's not too large. It's not too small, really timeless. Sub-seconds at 6 o'clock, as Brian had indicated. And again, the price point at $72.50 for the steel version is just really amazing.
Yeah, I think this was the piece that Chris, our CEO, said he felt was missing from the collection, was that that sublime, that dress watch in the Portugueser collection. So at 40 millimeters, with the simple dial, with the iconic design, really stresses elegance. And I think that was the one piece that bringing this into the collection now gives us a wider range of sizes and a wider range of looks in the Portugueser collection. This is our Perpetual Calendar 42. So we've taken the 44 millimeter Perpetual that you've all grown to love, and we've made it a little bit smaller. We've changed it slightly, only in the sense that there's no longer a 4-digit year display. However, there is a leap year indicator in the subdial at 9 o'clock. So you will see that there. One thing that's really, if you're familiar with IWC's Perpetual Calendars, one thing that's really nice about this particular Perpetual Calendar is that in the technology, there is now a desynchronization mechanism, which basically means that they have designed the movements in order to prevent desynchronizing the indicators. So in the past, you were able to potentially desynchronize the indicators if you were to try and set the calendar at that, during the 9 p.m., 3 a.m. hour, or anything of that nature. There's now a mechanism in there to prevent that. So no need to send it out to the repair center, because that will no longer happen in these particular models. But still has the same iconic moon phase. It still has the same innovation in that everything is synchronized over the crown as well. And this is the first Perpetual Calendar in the Portugueser line that comes in a steel model. So we have a steel model that we're offering for the very first time in a PPC, as well as the 5N or 18 karat 5N gold that we traditionally offer. All right. Okay. There we go. So our yacht club. So this is our new yacht club model. As you can see, it comes on a bracelet. This is our third generation of the yacht club. Really, the only difference in design outside of that is that we've moved the date from 3 o'clock now to the 6 o'clock subdial. And it is 1 millimeter larger, which does mean that if you own a previous model yacht club, the bracelet and the straps are not interchangeable. So that's the one caveat. However, you can see that we have launched new colors. So we have the blue dial. We also have the silver dial with the blue indicators, as well as the two-tone, which will be coming later at some point this year.
Yeah, and just to add to that, Brian, those of you that are familiar with the yacht club are used to seeing it available on a rubber strap. So we've kind of taken a different approach this year, and the watches will only be available on a metal bracelet. However, we will offer the rubber strap as an accessory to purchase after the fact. So if you still prefer your yacht club on a rubber strap, you will have that option as well.
And still has the same classic yacht club movement, the caliber 89, which also offers flyback functionality. Moving up in our yacht club line, we have our Moon and Tide. So as you can see, it now has this particular yacht club has a Moon and Tide complication. At 12 o'clock has the double moon phase, as well as the tide indicator for spring and neap tides. And then at 6 o'clock, it gives you the time that the tide is actually supposed to take place based on the alignment of the moon and sun in relation to the earth. Now, one thing to note is that this calculation and the way that the calculation has been designed, this particular timepiece only works in certain regions of the world based on your sea level. So ideally, and the way that this particular timepiece works is that it will give you the accurate time of the spring and neap tide, which typically takes place every 12 hours and 24 minutes. So you should see that indicated at 6 o'clock on the subdial. But again, that depends on the region that you are in. But that is the kind of the idea behind the new moon and tide.
Does it hold true in Minnesota at all, Brian, do we think?
that I don't know.
Right along the Minnesota coast.
There you go.
Lake Minnetonka.
No, but it really is an amazing technology that IWC has developed in this piece. We have 2 patents on the technology, the double moon and the high tide, low tide indicator. And just another fine example of IWC always pushing the boundaries on technology and developing robust movements, and obviously in a beautiful case.
Absolutely. And the strap itself is a textile strap. So I believe it's a rubber inlay with a textile overlay.
These I'm jumping through purposely to get to this slide.
All right, so this is our retrograde tourbillon. So the piece that you see on the left, albeit very beautiful, it is an 18 karat armor gold. So basically this particular timepiece is made of a very robust gold that goes through a microstructuring of the alloy, which makes it makes on the surface a lot harder and a lot more wear resistant. So it's not as malleable as our typical 5N gold. But as you can see, it has the retrograde date on the left. It is a chronograph, so you have your minute and hour counter at 12 o'clock. You also have your flying tourbillon at 6 o'clock. This piece will be a boutique exclusive, so it will be exclusive to the boutiques in that particular colorway. However, we are also offering it in the platinum that you see on the right. That will be available. It's limited to 50 pieces, but it will be available to retailers.
And that kind of brings us to the overview and everything Portuguese. So the pieces that you see is everything they offer in the Portuguese line, which is vast. And what I love about it, one of my favorites, is that all of it is accessible. You know, to get a Portuguese chrono or a Portuguese automatic now underneath the price of a Rolex Datejust in the same size really lends itself to me to be accessible for all. So very excited about this collection and everything that it has to offer. And that kind of brings us to the end of our presentation. Those of you that joined shortly after, we will be going in just 1 second over to our regular format where we'll invite you all in so that we can see each other and talk amongst ourselves. Before we do that, I would just like to offer up, while we are on this Zoom meeting, we also streamed it on Facebook Live and are still streaming it. So if you would go to Facebook and you would like the video once it's posted, and you would share it 3 times with 3 friends, we will put your name into a drawing for a $300 JB Hudson gift card. So I believe I saw at one point there was 35 of you, and I think a few of those were JB Hudson people. But if you like it and share it with 3 friends, we can tell that, and we will be able to put you into drawing for a $300 gift card that you can use towards anything at the store. So please do that for us, and we will announce the drawing. We'll contact you via Facebook or email when we see it. So at this time, if you would like to stay with us, we will invite you all in as panelists, and we will go to our format that we've been used to over the course of time and enjoy conversation. So thanks for joining us for this part of it.